It's very difficult to find a state in this country where the governor does not travel in a long convoy of many cars. It's very difficult to find a state in this country that is not full of billboards, plastered with the face of its governor, lavish with praise for its governor, for doing his normal job. It's very difficult to find a state in this country where the governor does not organize elaborate ribbon cutting ceremonies to mark the building of a fairly regular road. It's very difficult to find a state in this country where the governor uses security votes transparently for security alone, or where he answers questions routinely, respectfully, patiently from the people that elected him, or whether he does not seek to control the party structure, select his successor, and remain forever relevant in the affairs of that state. It is very difficult to find a state in this country where the elected governor is a woman or a member of a minority group in that state. It is very difficult to find a state in this country that runs a world-class public education system so that a child in a village in a remote part of that state can, in that village, access some level of quality education from the primary school there. It is very difficult to find a state in this country that runs a world-class public health system so that the rate at which women die giving birth in the local communities is negligible because there's an effective primary health center within walking distance of any settlement. It is very difficult to find a state in this country where the residents of its major towns and cities have routine access to pipe-borne water, where they don't have to worry about digging boreholes or buying water from itinerant tankers. It is very difficult to find a state in this country with an efficient public housing system so that the vulnerable, the lower income, the middle income have easy access to decent housing. It is very difficult to find a state in this country that has inner city roads that are not routinely flooded during the rainy season. It is very difficult to find a state in this country where people do not shit in the bushes and urinate into the open gutters. It is very difficult. You see, we like to make a big deal about our differences. We like to make a song and dance about how our own ethno-religious or ethno-regional group is different from the other. But what is everywhere evident are the similarities. Everywhere you look, in every region, in every state, in every local government, in almost every government parastatal or agency, you find that we are united by one pervasive culture of substandard governance. It doesn't matter whether the place is headed by a northerner or a southerner. It doesn't matter whether it is led by an easterner or a westerner. It doesn't matter whether it is managed by a Christian or a Muslim or a worshipper of Shango. As long as it is a Nigerian there, you are very likely to find one culture of substandard governance. And until we turn our full attention to addressing this, until we turn our full attention to fighting this instead of each other, we'll continue to go round and round the roundabout. And the solution to all this is very simple. It is to change your mindset, to realize that the Igbo is not your enemy. The Fulani is not your enemy. The Christian is not your enemy. The Muslim is not your enemy. The northerner is not your enemy. The southerner is not your enemy. That Yoruba woman living at the end of your street is not your enemy. The solution to all this is to change your mindset to realize that your enemy is poverty. Your enemy is unemployment. Your enemy is ignorance. Your enemy is unenlightened self-interest. The belief that you can defraud everybody else, you can cheat everybody else, you can oppress everybody else, you can terrorize everybody else, you can ignore everybody else, and at the end of the day, be left in peace by everybody else to enjoy your wealth. That is your enemy. The lack of a social conscience, of a social contract, the lack of wisdom to understand, to truly understand that it is in the best interest of the Fulani to ensure the welfare of the Igbo. That it is in the best interest of the Igbo to ensure the welfare of the Fulani. That it is in the best interest of the rich, of the powerful, of the elites, to ensure that the poor, the powerless, the downtrodden have decent houses to live in, have clean water to drink, have jobs to go to in the morning that occupy them all day. The lack of a system that works as well for the other as it does for you, the lack of a system that works for the bottom majority of our society, that is your enemy. And this is a war that cannot be won by armored personnel carriers and Tucano superjets. This is a war that can only be won by professional civil servants who show up in the office in the morning to put in a full day of work focused on solving our socioeconomic problems. This is a war that can only be won by politicians elected into office on a progressive, people-centered mandate to which they are held accountable every day by a civil society that refuses to be intimidated by authority, that refuses to be impressed by mediocrity, that refuses to be co-opted by bribery. This is a war that can only be won by well-crafted, well-thought-out budgets, balanced, and rigorously oversighted by a fierce, critical, independent legislature to ensure full implementation year in, year out. This is a war that can only be won by a professional police force committed to ensuring that everybody is equal before the law, regardless of class or pedigree or religion or ethnicity or political connection. This is a war that can only be won by a judiciary committed to upholding the ideal of ensuring that the majority and the powerful are never allowed to trample on the fundamental human rights of the minority and the powerless. This is a war that can only be won by good governance. So you can bomb and shoot as many dissidents and protesters and extremists as you like. You can jail and kill as many people as you like that don't share your political ideology or your ethnicity or your religion. But the cycle of violence, the cycle of economic impoverishment and social degeneration will not end until power is used by those who have it to bring development to those who do not. Until we do this, until we use power to institutionalize and energize a living social contract between the government and the governed that ensures a minimum standard of living for the bottom majority of our society, we will continue to exist in a state of chaos, conflict, and turmoil. But I have hope. I have hope because I see a generation on the horizon to whom your ethnicity will not matter as much as your capacity to move us forward. I see people coming who will not ask you, when you present yourself for leadership, who will not ask you, where do you come from? But instead, what can you do? I see them coming, the children of hard-working public servants who endured the brutality of this present system, and yet all their career refused to be compromised by it. And even now, in the poverty of their pension, sit out on their balconies looking back with pride at a lifetime of integrity. I see the children of public servants like that, growing up with a determination to walk proudly in the footsteps of their fathers and mothers. I see them coming, diggers of foundations that will endure for many generations, fixers of broken value systems, healers of our most lingering, our most odious, our most festering national wounds. I see them coming. Dancers, musicians, poets with a social conscience, app developers and entrepreneurs, filmmakers and innovative system thinkers, researchers and scientists, progressives and modern Pan-Africanists. I see them coming. A people whose talent, whose intelligence, whose rugged individualism, whose capacity to leverage on their inner Niger, that never say die spirit of innovation forged in the fires of cities like Lagos, like Port Harcourt, like Kano. I see them coming. A people whose capacity to leverage on their inner Niger will be our collective salvation. And that is why I have hope. Because I see that generation on the horizon. I see them in you, in an organization like BudgIT, in people like you, a gathering of young men and young women who in a terribly tribalistic environment have somehow found the strength and clarity to rise above the fray of tribe and tongue and focus attention on the root problem of capacity and merit. I see them in you, because in you, the beautiful ones are born. So I come here this afternoon only to encourage you to continue at a task that may seem impossible. But I assure you that just as we sit here today, united in one culture of substandard governance, just as we sit here today, united in this dystopia, if we refuse to relent on the pursuit of our ideals, so shall it be that one day we shall also stand together, shoulder to shoulder, united in victory. Thank you very much.